right. Well, thank you for coming along. This is going to be a little different. This is part 12 of my guitars, and we're getting into something a little bit different here. And I don't know if there's going to be so much history on this one as much as there will be just a discussion of what the guitar is to me and what it is, because there's not a lot of history about it. What we have here is a Flying V, obviously, but it is a UV-Vodka Flying V. It's specifically a UV birthday cake Flying V, which will be important in the story later. It was given to me by my brother, but he first reached out because it showed up on Facebook Marketplace for $35 and sent a picture to me, and I was like, dude, that's cool, but I just can't. I've got too many guitars already. So I don't know if he talked to my wife or not, or if he just went ahead and he went ahead and got it and surprised me for my birthday a little later on. We went out to their house, and then he came out with this. So it was a very thoughtful gift and just kind of a cool thing. But it turned into my first real experience with modding a guitar, too, just because of what it is, and we'll get into exactly what was done to it later. But the only thing I'd really done before was replace the tuners on the Telecaster that I had shown earlier. And, yeah, other than that, I hadn't really had to do anything, either setup-wise or anything either. I hadn't really experimented with doing anything. So this became the platform for that. So with the little bit of the story about how I got it, let's talk a little bit about the history, not so much of the guitar, but as to what kind of guitar it is. It's a promotional product, and you've probably seen these, and there's a lot of promotional guitars around. There's a few high-end examples, and I'll be showing pictures over here of different ones. Just for a couple of examples, there were some Squires that worked with different brandings. There was Gibson famously did a model with Corvette that they did, and those are very high-end promotional guitars. They were paid for by big companies and specifically made by the company for that. What I'm talking about today more are promotional guitars that were handled by a promotional company and made to order for a company, or it could even just be a distributor. Like for this one, I don't know if it was a local liquor distributor that decided they wanted to have a bunch of guitars to give out to liquor stores as promo items. Either way, this particular model was done by Edge Marketing and Promotional Products, and you can look them up. They're one of the companies that basically will put your logo on anything you want, kind of like any merch store would. And you can get pens, caps, shirts, different things. Guitar is an unusual example, but that is one that they do. And these particular ones, they actually made quite a few different ones. Edge Marketing, specifically for UV-Vodka, I'll show up at a couple of different examples, did a few different colors in Strat-type guitars. They did a few different colors in the Flying Vs. They had a red and a blue, a red, white, and blue, a pink, I think, just for the different various flavored vodkas that they had. Ultimately, they didn't make the guitar so much as make the wraps for the branding. So kind of like they would do the printing on pens or a hat or the silk screen on a shirt. They did the same thing for the guitar. So I'm pretty sure that they farmed that part out to get guitars as cheaply as they could from wherever, most likely China, and we'll get into that later too. So amongst the other promotional guitars, there were other high-end ones. For example, the Major League Baseball did a series with Taylor, and if everything is proper, you'll see a picture of an Orioles Taylor over there, Ted, so maybe that's an acoustic you'd be interested in. And NFL tie-in did some too. For instance, this Green Bay Packers one, just in case any of my family's watching, my birthday is coming up, just so you know. Make a very nice present. So, with that, I'm going to get a little bit into the specs of the guitar itself as much as I can, because this wasn't made by anybody. And I'm going to turn off I did turn off the receiver. Good, so we won't be getting any noise while we're doing this. So, what this is, it's a very generic Flying V, other than the promotional wrap on it. On the back, on the electronics cover, you can see Edge Marketing and Promotions put their brand on at least that part of it, which is kind of nice because that kind of helped me find a little bit more about the company that made these. Manufactured, no idea. There's no markings at all on it in any of the cavities. And sorry for that. When you have a rabbit, you occasionally get fur flying around. Back to the guitar. It was manufactured, I would be willing to bet, in China. Usually you get Indonesia, Vietnam, Korea, you get a little more quality product. This one was probably spec'd out to be as cheap as possible. The weight, my scale says 7.7 pounds. Might be because of the way I have to hold it when I'm playing that it feels like more. I haven't really put a strap on, well, I tried, but we'll get into that a little later too. It is a 25.5-inch scale, so it's the longer scale. The body is likely some kind of particle board or composite wood. It's very hard to tell because it's got a very thick coat of paint, and I'm assuming this is a decal or wrap of some sort that was put on it. It doesn't have a noticeable edge that I can feel, but I very doubt that this was painted unless it was done by some kind of machinery. And you can see that the pattern goes up on the neck too, so it's a little interesting. The neck, though, that I'm almost positive is maple, with no scarf joint that I could find, a little bit of a volute, kind of a pretty generic headstock shape, but it's not offensive. It is a pretty thin neck. I don't have any idea what the contour or shape of this would be called. I really need to get some of those neck gauges just to have a little more info about all my guitars, and just because it's something else to do. It is a bolt-on neck, and there is no cutaways or anything, but because of the shape of a flying V, there's actually pretty decent access to all the upper frets. The radius of the neck, unsure. It is very flat, though, so I'm going to assume it's at least a 12-inch radius, if not more. I need to get gauges for this too, so I can get some accurate numbers on that as well. The fretboard is maple. It is a lacquered maple. It has black marker dots, black side dots. Once you get past the 12th, no dots because the decal is up there. And the nut is a plastic 42 millimeter nut. This is, of all the things I did replace, this is one that I didn't because I didn't know exactly what I was doing yet. It was possibly originally cut for 10s or just not cut very well because everything that the strings are way down in the nut. So that is something that is going to be replaced. I'm going to throw a bone nut on it, possibly a red bone nut, since I saw Ted working with one of those. With this being a colorful guitar, I thought that would be kind of cool. The frets, there are 21, I'm going to call them medium, maybe medium jumbo frets. They're not super tiny, they're not super flat, but they are definitely nickel frets. And up in no man's land here, there's going to be a couple frets that I'm going to have to check because I can play pretty well along the whole thing. There's not a lot of buzzing, but there's a dead fret or two up here if I don't fret it really, really hard. The pickups, it's a single humbucker. Originally what was in it was an unmarked, unbranded ceramic humbucker that was very muddy and very inarticulate. The only any clean tones, it was just mud. The only way it sounded good was with a ton of high gain on it. I replaced it with a Wilkinson Vintage Classic Alnico 5 Overwound. Very nice pickup. Inexpensive, which is exactly what I wanted to do for a $35 guitar. I'm not going to be throwing a $300 Seymour Duncan in here. The stats on it say it has 14K output. I don't know about any of the other the impedance or anything else, but 14K for whatever that means. I mean, this, let's be honest, it's Flying V. I'm playing this mostly with a lot of gain anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It has a master volume, and that's it. There's no tone on this beast. And I swapped that out with a 500K pot. That was my first soldering experience, so I'll demo this later. It doesn't actually work as a volume knob. So I'll show a picture of the electronics later, and maybe some of the electronics geniuses here can tell me what I did wrong. Amongst the things that I know I did wrong, I'll put a picture of the cavity up here. Pay no attention to the really, really bad solder work. But number one, the pot was too big to fit through the hole, so I had to expand the hole. That was my first experience doing any woodworking on a guitar, and also my first experience finding out that Chinese pots have a smaller shaft on them. So I got the CTS pot in there, 500K, but I attached it and then decided to try and solder in that tiny, tiny access hole instead of doing the soldering first and then attaching it, which is something I've learned from watching many of you online now. So live and learn. That tiny, tiny space allowed me to burn my fingers several times and say a lot of words that I probably shouldn't in a YouTube video. And the tuners we replaced, they were just generic, standard sealed tuners. They were very, very sloppy and didn't hold tune at all. Plus, they were also chrome, which I just didn't feel went real well with the vibe of this guitar. So they've been replaced with black Geiger locking tuners, which have been performing great. The bridge, which while you would love to have a Floyd, if anything, on a Flying V, if not a hardtail, came with a standard 6-point trim, which was terrible. It was also chrome. So that was also replaced with a Geiger 6-point bridge, which holds tune a little better. I've set it so it's not decked. I just don't use it. If I didn't want to invest a whole ton more money in this, I maybe would even try and convert this into a hardtail just because of what it is. But finally, I replaced the strings from 10s to 9s, and also thought that it would be really kind of cool to just use these funky colored strings, which I'm not sure you're seeing them well on the camera here, but just because it's a colorful guitar, why not, right? We've got blacked out hardware. I replaced the solid black pickup with a zebra one just to get a little splash of color down there, and mainly just a better pickup. And I also did have this knob down here. We had a standard white witch hat knob there. I thought we needed a little splash of color there, so why not? And that's what I'm going to do with the nut too. Why not a red nut, but at least upgrade to a bone nut. Anything else about this? The back, just the standard neck plate, no branding at all on it. Strap button's right next to it. The other strap button is on the upper part of the V. The thing about this, I would wear a strap with it, but I don't have any straps that have a flip around way to reverse and not be twisted. The way these things sit to comfortably go over your shoulder, I'm going to have to get something like rock locks or something that I can put on a strap backwards and just put it on there if I ever want to use a strap with it. But to be honest, I have a feeling this thing would probably hurt my back terribly if I did so. So what I am going to do, I'm going to look into, I know the Epiphone models have a rubber strip here. I'm probably going to get some version of that. I found a couple things on Amazon that would probably work to cut your own and attach it there. Would I do that to an expensive guitar? Probably not, because I wouldn't want to wreck the finish. To a $35 guitar? Hell yes. So we'll be doing that as well. So with that, let me turn this back on. Get my headphones on. Sorry for any noise while I'm moving here. And we'll do some samples. We'll start with clean, which normally is not what you would picture from a Flying V, but why not? We'll see what the pickup sounds like. It's a pretty decent pickup. As you could hear by that, it needs a little bit of intonation still. So, a little bit of quack because it's a bridge pickup. I don't know that you'd call it a telly sound, but not what you're expecting out of a Flying V. So we'll go with a little bit of overdrive here. And you can tell that it takes overdrive really well, and it's still pretty articulate, which I really like. And then finally, a little more gain even. Trem doesn't do much except knock it out of tune. A little bit. Alright. I'm going to shut this down. Set it down so we can have just a couple final thoughts on the guitar. I did forget to mention, too, that those strings, and I'm going to put that up on the screen here as well. Another reason that I got them, just because I thought it would be kind of cool, they actually glow under a black light. So you should be seeing a picture of that over here. Not that I play out under a black light much, but you know what? It's a silly guitar, so I did silly stuff with it. I just wanted to say thank you again to my brother, because it was a very thoughtful gift. But he's a thoughtful guy, and it was just the perfect guitar to begin the modding experience with, because it didn't risk really anything. It was a $35 guitar. It was not even a Squier, much less a Gibson or a Fender, and it wasn't anything that I was really going to wreck. And even if I did, at the very least, it could still be a really cool wall hanger to have behind me during my videos or something, because it just the advertising of it, I think it looks kind of cool. Now, granted, is it a great guitar? No. I've seen people selling in this particular one. There's a Facebook Marketplace ad in our area of somebody wanting close to $300 for it. Resisted the urge just to reply to that and tell them, yeah, that's not going to happen. Or if it does, good for you. Unless it was stock. It had all the chrome stuff on it, so I could tell they didn't even had done any updates to it. But that being said, the neck is actually pretty good. I may have to do a little work on it to adjust those frets and check the action on relief again, because it had been sitting for a while. But no sharp frets on it at all, which is just amazing to me, unless somebody who had this did some work. But what my brother said, the guy he bought it from won it at some work party and just had it in a closet all these years. So must have been not overly humid or anything in there, so it's still in good condition. The body itself, it feels okay. Nothing's really kicking up on it. I've got a relic mark on it somewhere. I don't know if I did that or if it came that way, but that's fine. And when I did open to do the electronics, that's where you could see that it was maybe that particle board, which I think is what's making it feel more dense, if not heavy. But it has decent sustain, and it's a fun guitar to play. So it's really turned into a fun, usable instrument. I enjoy taking it out to play. I think I'll enjoy taking it out more if I add that grip strip on and don't have to play it in classical position, which with the location of the input jack, playing in classical position is not always real great either, even with a cord versus a wireless unit. But that being said, I still really, really like this guitar. I kind of like the birthday cake one. It was appropriate because it was a birthday gift. If I were to say maybe get another one, the red, white, and blue one's kind of cool looking. So with that being said, that is part 12. We are getting towards the end of my guitars. Well, at least for now, right? That's what every guitar player says. But I do want to thank everybody for coming along for the ride, hanging out with me, talking about guitars, watching my videos. I still cannot believe the number of views for a small channel that I get on things like these, and I can't thank all of you enough. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope everybody has a terrific week coming ahead, and we'll see you next time.